The next. Testing. Okay. Commi- Leave them open, yeah. Please. Yes, I can. Okay. In Silverton, we're going to allow our mayor of Silverton, who was so gracious to invite us, to come up and say a few words. But if you could introduce yourselves from the DS first, that would be great.
Leslie Hervey, interim clerk.
Alicia Reese, Vice President of the Hamilton County Commission.
Good evening. I'm County Commissioner Denise Driehaus.
Jeff Aludo, County Administrator.
Thank you so much. And I'm Stephanie Summerall Dumas, President of the Hamilton County Board of Commission. Welcome, Mayor, to your own place.
Well, thank you. Good evening and welcome to Silverton 2022-2023 budget. Thank you for sharing with us. We look forward to working right along with you in the coming years. So we have a new motto in Silverton right now. We say Silverton, tomorrow, now. So we want to go with that. Also in the audience with us this evening is Silverton's finest manager, Mr. Tom Carroll's with us. Mr. Carroll, thank you for sharing with us. So here again, thank you for coming. We welcome you anytime you want to come share with us. By the way, those that I haven't introduced myself to, I'm Mayor John A. Smith in the city of Silverton. And again, thank you and welcome all.
Thank you so much. So this evening, we have one item on our agenda, the 2022 budget hearing. Before we go specifically into the hearing, I'd like to just say a few words. The budget that we're looking at for 2022 is administrator's recommended budget that he submits to the commissioners. We started this on Tuesday with department heads coming in and presenting their budgets to us for consideration. The next budget hearing will be November the 17th at 6:30 in Forest Park. And so if you are not able to make it here and you're not able to watch it tonight, you certainly can come to Forest Park, or you can get online through Zoom and give your comments, suggestions, recommendations. Our final hearing will be back at our office, 138 East Court Street, in the Commissioner and the Todd Portune building. And that will be our last public hearing, which is during our regular commission meeting. So you can also attend that, give comments as it relates to that. And I'm going to ask our other commissioners if you can consider December the 7th to submit any items that you have in your office that were possibly not covered through the administrator's regular budget. So we're looking at December the 7th, and because our last final hearing is the 2nd, and we will have all input from the community by then. So Let me know if that's a problem, but that will give them at least a week to get the final budget in. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to ask our administrator to just do a run through. Any questions about comments that I just made? Is the 7th sound okay?
No, that sounds great. And I
Okay.
too want to thank Silverton for hosting us this evening.
Sure, yeah. Would you like to?
Yes, obviously, it's great to be back in Silverton, and I want to thank you for hosting us. I also want to thank you for hosting our 513 relief bus, and so we really appreciate the partnership here in Silverton.
Thank you. Administrator.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Commissioners. And also, thank you to Mayor Smith and Manager Carroll for the opportunity to be out here. Also, just wanted to mention we have a few county staff in attendance tonight. Assistant Administrator John Brugan, who's going to be tag teaming the presentation tonight with me. Cheryl Floyd from our budget office. Holly Chrisman, Assistant County Administrator, Lisa Webb, our Senior Policy Manager, and Robert Bell, our Director of Economic Equity and Inclusion. So, and Teresa Giglio, obviously, from our office also, and Bridget Doherty, who is helping us with the PowerPoint this evening. So thanks to everyone for being here tonight from the administration. I appreciate their turnout. And I'm happy to present to the board this evening a quick run through of our 2022 recommended budget. Again, as I said, Mr. Bergen is going to be helping me with some of the presentation, but I do just want to emphasize to the public who may be watching at home that this is the administration's recommended budget. This is not the Board of County Commissioners budget at this point in time. This is the beginning of the process. The commission, as President Summer Dumas had indicated, will have the opportunity to hear public feedback, make modifications and alterations to the budget, after which point in time there will be a final version which will be passed in mid-December. So with that, I'm going to walk through the all funds budget recommendation. And I'm going to go fairly quickly through this in the interest of time. But the all funds budget is recommended to the board at a level of $1.1 billion. That includes the general fund at $313.4 million, as well as various restricted funds that are also part of the budget as well. I'm going to turn it over to John to walk through some of the financial nuts and bolts associated with revenue and expenditure levels at this point.
Yes, the slide you see in front of you now is a breakdown of the all funds budget, the $1.1 billion budget. You can see the general fund is the single largest fund in that grouping. It's just over $313 billion. But there are plenty of other substantial services that are also part of this. Job and family services, and the collection of funds associated with that coming in at $255 million. State and parking just over 100, and developmental disabilities just under $100 million. Going down to some of the smaller ones, the smallest one on this chart being the support for the Cincinnati Zoo for that property tax levy, which has over $7 million. When we break out the revenue sources, this is general fund only. You can see the sales tax is by far the largest source of revenue in the 2022 general fund budget. We saw very strong, over 8% sales tax growth in 2021. So we are projecting it to slow down a bit in 2022, assuming that we have seen some pent-up demand and a very, very strong economy in 2021. When you look at the second source is property tax revenue. We're projecting it pretty stable in 2022. We're coming off of a reassessment year a year or so ago, so we are not expecting any major changes in the property tax revenue in 22. Intergovernmental revenue in this chart reflects a 100% reimbursement from the state for our public defender
Excuse me,
operation.
John. I think the sound person needs you to kind of speak up a little bit. Yeah, or right into the mic. Okay. Thank you.
Reflects a 100% reimbursement from the public defender, from the state for our public defender's office. Our real estate fees that are on here also assume some slowing in the market with real estate having been very, very strong in the last year. Court fees and fines are also very cautious figures for 2022. We have seen those suppressed by both economic reasons and the pandemic as a whole, with some closure of the courts in recent years. And then finally, falling interest and earnings rates in 2022 as interest rates have been down, although we actually just received some good news today in the Investment Advisory Committee meeting because we are expecting interest rates to start creeping back up next year. So we should see some improvement in the numbers that are currently in the recommendation.
That's great.
On the expenditure side of the general fund, just a few things to point out that the two biggest pieces of this are public safety and judicial areas. So 75% of the general fund is related to these criminal justice services. We also like to point out that about 68% of the general fund is personnel. So the people of the county make up a large percentage of the cost in our general fund. Healthcare costs in 2022 are going in a direction that's probably a little surprising. They're actually down slightly as we've made some prudent decisions in our medical self-insurance fund. And the budget does intentionally increase funding for capital equipment and repairs, and Jeff will talk a little bit more about that later. And then a bit about our general fund reserve. The reserve is sort of our fallback account that we have in case things don't go the way we expect them to. As a rule, you want, per the Government Finance Officers Association, you want about 2 months of reserve on hand for basic cash flow and to insure against unforeseen circumstances. And we have a goal ourselves of about 15%. So you want to be between 15 and 20. We finished 2020 just over 15%. We're projecting 2021, 2022 in the 19 to 20% range.
Thank you, John. And just to pick up on some points that John made, I do want to emphasize that the budget that we are recommending this year is a balanced budget, and we always, as a matter of course, recommend a balanced budget to the board, but we have the ability this year to recommend what we believe is not only a balanced budget, but a structurally balanced budget, in that we foresee, number one, the ability of our resources and our sources of funding to match our ongoing use of funds, not only this year, but into the future as well. And for those that have taken part in budget hearings in the past or just been attuned to county finances in the past, that is not a position that we have been in very frequently as it relates to our budget submittal. So we are in a much better position as it relates to a balanced budget this year than we have been in the past, being able to show a structurally balanced budget and to project that into the future. As we put together the budget recommendation for the board's consideration, we did hit on several policy goals. John just walked through stabilizing the finances of the county, responding to COVID-19, public safety, economic and community development, supporting vulnerable populations, strengthening management systems internal to the county, inclusion and equity, addressing capital needs, and supporting human capital needs. Bridget? I'm going to walk through these very quickly, much quicker than I did during the rollout session last week, but I just think it's important that folks, especially those watching at home, have some context for what the budget supports. So first and foremost, public safety. The budget supports the operations of the sheriff, 911, courts, the coroner and crime lab, and the prosecutor's office, and it supports various programs such as our law enforcement assisted diversion program, our electronic monitoring division within the courts. As we heard the other day from Court Administrator Dressing, we are now up to around 650 electronic monitoring units that are out in the community, helping to keep the population or the capacity of our Justice Center used for the most serious of offenders. It supports the Sheriff's Peace Officer Academy to assist with the attraction and retention of deputies, especially those into the corrections officer field within the Justice Center. And it supports the retention of a $5 911 detail rate, which is down significantly from years past, which is of significant benefit to our partner communities as it relates to our 911 system. Community and economic development. The budget supports our economic development partners, including the Hamilton County Development Company, the Port, the Regional Economic Development Initiative, or READY, and OKI, as well as various economic development programs. For instance, our Community Revitalization Grant. The budget supports that at $1.5 million, which is a grant program for primarily focused on first suburban communities in Hamilton County to help with revitalization and infrastructure. a new community impact grant program, which is designed to really work with 1 or 2 targeted communities to help bring those communities along, again, from an infrastructure perspective, in accordance with a longer term plan to get those communities to the point where they have addressed many of their most basic infrastructure and revitalization needs. It also adds a small business office to the programming of HCDC and continues our site readiness program programming at $2 million to continue to add to the inventory of large sites in Hamilton County with which we can use to attract jobs, investment, large manufacturing, et cetera. Bridget? The budget supports vulnerable populations. It includes all of the work of Job and Family Services, Veteran Services. It includes all of our levy work plans and our American Rescue Plan implementation. Not going to go into all the activities of Job and Family Services tonight, but all the work related to children's services, adult protection, child support, workforce investment, including the fantastic work that JFS has been doing as it relates to things like promoting the advancement in kinship housing of children in our community, and really protecting the most vulnerable children in our community. As the board is aware, our Children's Services Levy passed at the polls in early November, which will provide us the ability to continue to advance child protection programming in 2022 and beyond. The budget also includes our 513 relief operations. It includes levy reviews next year for senior services, mental health, and indigent care, and it includes the addition of a consolidated youth office within the operations of Job and Family Services. Bridget? The budget supports initiatives related to management systems within Hamilton County, primarily improvements and efficiencies within general government operations. For instance, the budget supports the improvement of our government affairs operation to ensure that we are more effectively coordinating the legislative priorities at both for the county at both the state and federal levels, as well as continued planning for major investments in some of our most critical systems that guide the work of many of our county operations, like the jail management system, the finance system, the case management system within the court system, the recorder system, purchasing system, and lab systems within the coroner's office. Capital improvements, John mentioned on this, 2022 is going to be a year heavy on capital. We have a lot of deferred capital maintenance within the county that we continue to need to address. We have a 10-year deferred capital number of around $300 million. And for years, the county just had not been able to put any real resources towards addressing this. So the budget includes funding within county facilities to address regular and routine deferred capital maintenance. And it includes larger projects like the consolidation of our 911 and EMA facilities, progress on the Banks Lot 28 and Black Music Walk of Fame, satellite office development using ARP funds, continued work on our Finley Market parking facility, and as I mentioned, $3 million in deferred capital maintenance in county facilities. The budget includes continued work on inclusion and equity within the county, funding the Department of Economic Inclusion and Equity and our community engagement efforts, continues the economic disparity study that we are doing within that department. It also includes a $250,000 earmark within the budget for advanced initiatives that may come before that disparity study is complete. Bridget? And on the human capital front, the budget supports all of the funding for the compensation benefits, attraction and retention of the county workforce, as well as all of the individuals working for the county. We have the budget includes 2,446 FTEs within the general fund and 4,669 FTEs within the all funds or consolidated budget. The budget includes a 3% wage adjustment for non-bargaining staff. It also includes funding underneath the Board of County Commissioner departments for market compensation adjustments, additional staff development, training, and the reinstitution of the tuition reimbursement program. As with all budgets, there are risks associated with this budget, as Assistant Administrator Brueggen indicated. A slowdown in sales tax growth is projected next year as some of the pent-up demand in the economy begins to wean off, as some of the federal stimulus flows out of the economy. However, we have been prudent in our projection and estimation of sales tax for next year. So we feel we've accommodated for that risk, but nonetheless, we've listed it here. The risk of financial downturn is always with us, although again, that's not something we see as a high risk next year. Inflation is likely a heavier risk as it relates to the cost of goods, services, and wages, and also always departmental budget compliance, as we have service needs in various departments, in particular in the public safety function, that in certain years can exceed allocated resources, and to the degree we have those, that represents another risk. This is the first budget hearing that we have tonight here in Silverton. As Commission President Summer Dumas mentioned, our second public hearing is at the Forest Park Senior Center on November 17th, and the third hearing on the 2nd down at 138 East Court Street in Cincinnati, Ohio, 45202. And between now and the end of that hearing, we will be gathering public input with which to receive additional policy guidance from the board so that we can offer a final version of the budget by the board's final meetings of this year, which will occur on December 14th and December 16th. Madam President, happy to answer any questions or turn it over to you for public comment.
Thank you so much. Before we have public comment, I'll open it up to my colleagues to see if there are any comments. Vice President Reese.
Thank you, Madam President. If you don't mind, I wanted to hear from I'd like to leave my comments at the end after whoever wants to talk. I'd like to hear from them
Okay,
first.
as it relates to what he had just given us, do you have any comments as it relates to his report?
No comments at this
Okay.
time.
I have no comments.
Okay. I just wanted to bring up, as it relates to electronic monitoring, we fought very hard, not myself, but people were advocating that to reduce the amount of people in the jail system if we could do more electronic monitoring, and it worked. We increased how many people are on the electronic monitoring, which hopefully will reduce recidivism as we look at the jail system itself. I'm on a public safety committee for commissioners of the state of Ohio, and the public safety committee I've been on there, we've had 3 webinars, and each one they talk about how to increase funding for jails. And so I said, I'm going to go to the next meeting and see if our discussion will be anything different than just funding buildings. And so I'll let everyone know about that, but there's so much more than just the infrastructure of a jail and getting more jails. And so, Jeff, you had mentioned about being structurally balanced, and it's been a while. How long has it been that you can say that we've been structurally balanced?
Madam President, I don't know that I can cite a specific year, but I can tell you that our ability to offer what we truly consider to be a structurally balanced budget really during the recession years is when we first started to see budgets that were largely out of balance and projected to be out of balance for the long term. And we started to see a gap in both our ability to close that structurally. And we also, at the same time, as we began to see our revenues suppressed, we also continued to see the needs of the organization retain at that level or increase as they do inflationary costs to maintain the same level of purchases and programming. We held wages flat for years. I think 4 or 5 years in a row we held wages flat in the county. So we got out of balance with market between county employees and other local governments and in the private sector as well. But at the same time, I will say that we continued to do those things through those years to ensure that we were running county government as efficiently as we could. We invested heavily in energy conservation to reduce our energy costs. We refinanced debt wherever we could. We consolidated departments to reduce middle management costs. We closed operations. We closed a jail and unfortunately had to lay off public safety personnel. So we did all of those things during that time that I think the public would expect that we would do first as a county government as any local government, to make sure that we are balancing our resources with our expenditures. And back in, I think it was in 2019, the board approved a quarter-cent sales tax increase, which we now have, that is allowing us to make progress on some of these things and do some of the policy-related things that the board and the community has been asking for, keeping our 911 detail rate low, investing in partnerships and economic development in the community, investing in a public safety system that is focused on recidivism reduction, reentry, and diversion, as opposed to simply incarceration. So that's the types of things we can do with a structurally balanced budget, as opposed to simply getting along from year to year to year. So
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I just wanted to compliment our HR staff and also our administration as it relates to, John was talking about our health benefits have really gone down a little bit. And I know that you guys listened to our employees and they had concerns about their health services and whether or not they were getting what they needed. And so we reached outside of what we already had and found a better system, a better health system, and as it relates to dental also. And so I want to thank our staff for not just being complacent and go with what we have, but they reached out and advocated for our staff. So thank you very much. Commissioner Dreehouse?
No.
Nothing. Okay. All right. So we'll open it up for anyone that's out in the audience that has any comments or questions as it relates to what you'd like to see in the budget or what you may think is missing. Come on up.
Doesn't have a speaker's card.
Oh, okay.
We know
Mr. Carroll.
We know him.
Uh-huh.
Madam President, members of the commission, thank you for coming to Silverton. My name is Tom Carroll. I'm the village manager with Silverton.
No, you're the best village manager.
Thanks. Just real quick, wanted to offer two thank yous and a request. Thank you in the recommended budget for the community revitalization grant that is in, I think, the 21 budget as well as the 22 budget. Very helpful, very instrumental partnerships with local governments, jurisdictions like Silverton. We're very grateful for that assistance. So commend you and thank you for that. Also, didn't want to miss the opportunity to point out my appreciation for the continued reduction in 911 charges. Something I've talked to Mr. Aludo about over the years. He's talked to many people beyond me about that over the years, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that continued reduction is extremely helpful. So thank you. And then I understand in a brief communication I had with Mr. Aludo that what I'm about to ask you for is not in the consolidated budget, it is fiscal. And you're here and I'm here, so maybe I'll just talk about it anyway. But I was going to ask for the county to accelerate and put more resources into the community development department, which has lost a number of employees in recent months. And they are the experts in compliance with federal grant regulations. So I would simply ask that the county consider accelerating expenditures in that department, because we as local governments, as well as nonprofits, rely on those federal funds that pass through the county and need to be administered by the county. We rely heavily on them for our revitalization. So that is my request, and thank you.
Thank you so much. And I know, Jeff, we have posted some positions to fill some of those community development positions. I know in planning and development.
yeah, we have. There's been some attrition in that office, and we're looking at it right now. We've had some senior leadership in that department leave as well. So we want to make sure that we bring some people in quickly to restaff the office in a way that allows it to keep moving as it has seamlessly. As Manager Carroll points out, that office is extremely important to the work at the local government level. It implements the community development block grant program for the county. It implements the home program for the county, which the board has used to fund affordable housing projects, the emergency solutions grant, which does a lot of our homelessness programming in the community as well. So there's a lot of things that are integral to board policy that department does. I'm going to be working with Holly and with our HR director, Frank Spataro, to make sure that we restaff that office as quickly as we possibly can, so that we can keep the progress in those areas moving quickly and effectively.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Do we have anyone on Zoom? No?
I had to say, this is the quickest budget hearing I've ever attended for the county.
Yes. Okay.
Well, I would like to say something.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank
Uh-huh.
you. I had a question before my comment. Manager Carroll, you mentioned, I know you said the acceleration of hiring. And maybe Jeff, you talked about how important this department is. Can you just talk about, in terms of right now, we're trying to hire people, but at the same time, making sure that these deadlines do we have any a threat at this time of missing any deadlines?
I don't think we have. Yeah, good question, Commissioner. I don't think we have any threats of missing deadlines at this point. And we will, from a project perspective, we will keep things moving forward. Also, from a big picture perspective, the action plan for the community development office, which the board has to approve. I believe the public hearing process for that begins on November the 30th, and will run through the early part of the year. So we will keep to that timeline as well, and that's the process we use to set the next year of budget for community development department, and we will be keeping in compliance with that schedule as well.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that this is my first budget as a county commissioner, not my first budget with a government entity. I've been the vice chair of the finance committee for the city, been on the finance committee for the state, which is a lot tougher because we got so many people on there. We were in the super minority, Commissioner Driehaus and I. And as we look at where we are right now as it relates to a pandemic, hopefully coming out of it, but it still seems to want to linger around, and having federal government for the first time, at least in my lifetime, and in many people who are alive lifetime that they can remember, the federal government wanting to actually bail out the American people. Usually we bail out industries, and hope that it trickles down. But we've been given funding, as well as other counties, to get funding and help to the people, which has allowed us to do some different things, some creative things, and some things in a quicker time frame. You overlay that with this budget, which some of those dollars have helped our overall budget, because those federal dollars that we were able to get out to citizens of Hamilton County, they reinvested. They bought groceries. They were able to buy back to school backpacks and those kind of things that trickled back into our economy here as we get sales tax. One of the things that I'm looking for as we move forward, every county in America has been hit. And so we're all kind of at the same level now. And the question becomes, who comes out of this and becomes the model for others to follow? I'm happy that I am chairing the COVID-19 Economic Recovery and Relief Task Force. So for me, I wanted to make sure that the budget, obviously structurally balanced, is a great thing, and certainly commend our administration. But I also want to make sure that the people that live in Silverton and live in all of our municipalities, that their budgets can become structurally balanced. We have seen, even here at Silverton, the bus, I think, was supposed to show up at 10 o'clock, and people were here at 7 a.m. Because they needed help. They wanted the shot, but they also needed help. And I remember running to one woman here, which helped me understand more of how we can tweak what we're doing. She was here for rental assistance. She's a grandmother. Her daughter died of an aneurysm, and she was taking care of her grandkids. She's retired, and she just wanted rental assistance to get a little help. She didn't know that we also had a kinship program. And so the folks at JFS who was with our bus was able to get her not only signed up for rental assistance, not only to get the shots, but also to get help with the kinship program. So again, I want to thank you all. There are some things that I'm looking at. I'll have my full meeting with the administrator to be able to go through this entire budget line item by line item, but also just wanted to let you know that there are some areas I want to see some more for senior citizens. We do have a levy, but a lot of people are on fixed income, and the gas and electric just announced that their rates are going up, but the senior citizen check is not going up. And so we might want to look at what other things can we do to help seniors that are on a fixed income. I also want to see a little bit more with the youth department. And I know Mayor Smith talks about this all the time. He said, we got to do something for our youth. We got to get our youth in positive things so they don't get into negative things. And so I'm looking forward to, I know it's in here, but we want to look at how we structure these things. So in the budget, we're looking to do some new things to increase our technology. We've got money for broadband that we're going to be using for ARA dollars, how to make this county technology #1 in the whole country. And I just wanted to highlight some of those things that will also be able to be put on the table as we start looking at the final budget that we will pass. So just wanted to share that while I'm in Silverton. I know I shared it when we were downtown. Maybe you saw it on Zoom, maybe you didn't. But I wanted to highlight those particular areas because some of those ideas came from people that live right here in Silverton. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Commissioner Dreehouse.
Thank you, Madam President. Just quickly want to thank Tom for your testimony, for bringing your positive and your comment to our attention. I appreciate it. There is one other fund in the recommended budget. It's $1 million for kind of a targeted approach in different communities to kind of a full court press. And so there is an additional investment that we hope will help some of the local partners, not only with economic development, but other struggles in some of the local communities. So I just want to bring that to your attention. And thank you for testifying. So yeah, I've made all my comments, I think, at our previous meeting. So again, thank you to staff for getting this together so that we can be out in the public, out in the community with the budget. And I just appreciate all the work that's gone into this. Thank you.
Thank you. Just finally, just a couple comments. The nonprofit monies through the ARP will be released, or we'll have a release of that. I have November the 18th is the day we were planning on doing that. That was in your summary.
Yeah, I know we were looking to have a contract, I think, with United Way by the 18th. So yeah, we should be releasing shortly thereafter. Yes.
Okay, very
Yes.
good. So what I'm saying for whoever's listening, if you're a nonprofit, put in your application, go on our website, because we want to release this money to you. We don't want to have to send any monies back. And so it will be coming very soon, because I know we already had a few applications come in. In addition, we will not be meeting tomorrow, which is our normal day because it's a Veterans Day. So I would like to, and I'm sure the commissioners, to wish you a good Veterans Day. But we'll be back. And so the other thing I want to say, this was such a short budget hearing, and I want to tell the people that are watching, the tens of thousands of people that are watching, that we really want your input. We are not just putting this together and going through the motions of having budget hearings, and we really want to know what are we doing well, what do we need to do differently or more creatively. So please give us your input. If you don't want to get on Zoom, send us an email. However that can happen, because I just really want to feel like the public. And I know they trust us because you sent us up here. We're representing you, but I'd like to hear from you, good or bad. Okay.
Madam President?
Yes.
Can I just want to just piggyback on that nonprofit grant? One of the things that the board did, I think, was great. We said we want to also allow, sometimes people think you have to be this huge nonprofit, and I think you brought it up at a couple meetings ago, and just want to just reiterate that you don't have to be this huge conglomerate nonprofit. We have, as a board, expressed that we want grassroots organizations to be able to also participate if you're out here helping the community. United Way will be the, I guess, the entity to administer those grants. but please don't be shy of thinking that maybe you're not big enough to apply and participate, because the board has been very clear that we want an assortment of organizations that are doing good work to get an opportunity as well to assist them to help people in the communities throughout Hamilton County.
Thank you. Okay, with all minds and hearts are clear, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Yes,
Commissioner Reese.
Yes.
Commissioner Dreehouse.
Yes.
thank you all.
Yeah.